Shamu, everyone. We are moving forward with the deconstructing of the history of the left-hand path. It is 1 a.m. It took a lot longer for me to go through this than I expected because we're in an area. It is now 1990 something. Where are we at? Let me double check. We're now in the 1970s still, and guess what? We found a new planet. This new planet's name is Isis, and it is a transplutational planet. I know, very exciting. Or it would be if any of this made any sense. That's right, we're talking about Kenneth Grant. We're now getting into the very modern authors, and some of these are going to be a doozy. Grant's going to start us off strong. There's a lot that is going to go on here when we talk about Kenneth Grant. I do not know how many parts this section will be. And there's some parts I'm just not going to address. I've previously addressed them, core parts of it, and then things just go a little silly. At least I view it as silly. I apologize. This one is going to be much harder than my regular videos, and I don't quite... I'm going to leave the rambling in here, but we're going to get started. We're going to just try and hit this as beat by beat possible as I can. So Kenneth Grant, occultist in the 70s, notable for being a prolific writer. In 1972, he wrote The Magical Revival. In 1973, he wrote Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God. In 1975, he wrote Cults of the Shadow. In 1977, he wrote Night Side of Eden. In 1980, he wrote Outside the Circles of Time. In 1992, he switched it up and wrote Hecate's Fountain. In 1994, he wrote The Outer Gateways. In 1999, Beyond the Mauve Zone. And 2002, The Ninth Arch. We're not addressing all of these. We're going to be addressing two main ones here. We're going to be addressing Cults of the Shadow and Night Side of the Eden. Or Night Side of Eden, because this is where the left-hand path goes. And I need you all to buckle in for this one, because we're going to get crazy. So, his 1975 publication, Cults of the Shadow, asserts a few things. Now, he writes this after being kicked out of the OTO over claims that there was a new planet called Isis. And we're going to see how this all works in. My hair's a mess. It's 1 a.m. We're going to go... This will probably be 3 or 4 parts alone on this. But basically, what he says is that there is a never before talked about but hidden Typhonian or Draconian current, and that this current links pre-dynastic Egypt, Kaula Tantra, and the Afro-diasporic religions all into one, draconic Ophidian system. So what he attempts to say is that there was a Draconian, Typhonian cult for Set or Sothis, and one of the things it did was to systematize a lot of the primitive African mysteries, basically tying in the 8x864 and a bunch with the Vaves. We're going to get into this. This is going to be a lot to dig into. But he connects 36 gnomes, which are these steps that last a fortnight, and then later ties Tantra into this matrix, while also connecting Set Typhon with Sirius, and framing this, global shadow that is gnosis powered, and it's powered by kalos, sexual kalos or fluids. So let's get into what am I even saying here, because we have a whole system to talk about here. So we need to understand that Grant puts forward the idea of the shadow, this psychosexual current that exists within a Typhonian current. The shadow is what he alleges people were talking about when they pointed at the left-hand path prior. He alleges that it isn't a moral evil. It's a field of these psychosexual forces, and they can be mapped into the cosmos and into the body and worked. To do this, he introduces what is called marmas or power zones that he maps onto the body, where you have this kind of different zones within the body, as well as ojasic currents in the hands, and he, of course, overlays this into a Kabbalistic tree as well. Combining these together creates the fire snake of Set, which is a transsexual ignition point of the entire work. So what we end up doing is syncretizing a lot here. I'm going to try, bear with me. These marmas are mapped to the body, as well as the Kabbalistic tree of life, as well as to the cosmograms. And in addition, each part of the body is mapped to a tarot. So we're syncretizing a lot of stuff here. We're heavy syncretizing. But these have the ojasic currents in the palms, and the idea of a fire snake rising to Ajna, where essentially man is wielding the fire snake, and woman becomes the oracle through which the fire snake will receive the current, receive the work. Wine and drugs are brought up as being physically used, as well as symbols of Kala emanations that are stirred by the fire snake. This is leaning on some really heavily leaning on some Tantra stuff that we kind of talked about with Avalon, and we kind of talked about with what Tantra is and Kala is. But this is just a blatant appropriation of the Kalas, which he tries to have as these serpentine emanations, in a 1629 schema, where he maps things in an order of 16 to link to the Tree of Life, and an order of 29 to link to the paths. It's a lot. It's a lot here. This is the basis of his idea of the shadow, of the current that drives the draconic Typhonian current. There is going to be, because we have only got to one point of this, and I'm in 9 minutes. There's going to be a lot of syncretizing that we're going to go on to going further. A lot of this is going to be very difficult to explain. It may have been by design. We will talk about that, or we've briefly talked about it before. But this is all coming from his book, Cults of the Shadow. If people want to dig deeper, knowing, what we're going into. Anyways, this is going to return for part 2 momentarily. We are still talking about the Cults of the Shadow. I shall return.